I grew up on an island with one rule: never talk about the other island. Part 2. The forest swallowed us quickly. The path that had been there a few minutes ago disappeared behind a wall of brush and bark. The deeper we walked, the stranger everything became. The trees were wrong. Not in obvious ways, nothing that would scream out to someone who'd just arrived, but we knew trees. We'd grown up climbing them, chopping them, counting the rings of ones that had fallen in storms. And these felt like copies. Imitations. Like something had tried to recreate them from memory and missed the proportions. Too many knots. Branches that twisted back toward the trunk. Bark that felt like damp cloth when your hand brushed past it. The ground was soft, but not with moss or leaves. It felt loose, like something had recently shifted underneath it. The air smelled like iron and mildew and something sweet rotting deeper in the woods. Eventually we found a clearing, no wider than a fishing boat. A fallen tree split it down the middle, half uprooted, with thick green moss crawling along its trunk like veins. Jonah sat down on it, hands on his knees, his face pale. "What the hell was that?" he asked. No one had an answer. Sam was pacing again, running a hand through his hair over and over. Eli stood with his back to a tree, eyes scanning the brush as if he expected the woman, or something else, to step through it at any moment. That's when we heard it, a click. Soft. Mechanical. Out of place. Not a branch snapping or the wind shifting, but the distinct sound of a latch lifting. A door, opening somewhere ahead of us in the woods. None of us said to move toward it. But we did. No one suggested turning back. No one asked if we were sure. Maybe because saying it out loud would make it real. Or maybe because that sound, the quiet, metallic certainty of it, felt like a thread pulled taut. And we couldn't stop ourselves from following where it led. As we moved, the forest didn't grow thicker. It grew darker. The light filtering through the trees lost its sharpness. Not just shade, like the sunlight itself had started to dim before it reached the branches. The air pressed in again. Not sharp, like on the beach. Heavier. Like something watching had started to breathe. Eventually, the trees broke into another clearing. The grass here was shorter, yellowed and dry, crunching underfoot. And in the middle of it stood a house. None of us spoke at first. It wasn't broken down or ruined, just old. Weathered boards, sun-faded paint. A small porch sloped slightly to one side, and the roof looked like it had sagged a little in the middle, like something heavy had once sat on it. It looked like the kind of house someone might still live in. We approached slowly. Cautious, not curious. Something about it made our steps slow down without us talking about it. I kept scanning the windows, half expecting someone to be standing just behind them, watching. Nathan stopped before the others did. He tilted his head slightly, then pointed to the corner of the porch. "My dad made a post like that," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. He walked a few steps closer, squinting at the frame around the door. Then to the woodwork under the windows. "It's like our house," he said. "It's not the same. But it's close." He stepped up onto the porch. We followed, hesitant. None of us wanted to be near the place, but no one wanted to let Nathan go alone either. The door was already cracked open, just a few inches. Nathan hesitated anyway, like something might still reach out and shut it. Nothing did. So he pushed it open the rest of the way. The smell hit first. Just stale air and old wood. Like a room that hadn't been opened in too long. The kind of place where dust doesn't float, it just settles into the walls. It looked small from the outside, but the inside felt deeper. Bigger than it should have been. Like the walls had stretched just enough to be wrong. Inside, the light was dim and orange tinted, like it was filtering through the wrong kind of glass. The hallway was narrow. A coat rack on one side. Faint scuff marks on the floor. A chair in the corner that looked familiar, though I couldn't say why. Nathan stepped in first. We followed, slow. Nathan was quiet. He was looking at the photographs on the wall. They were of his family. His parents. His sister. Him. But everything was reversed. His dad's watch was on the wrong wrist. His sister's birthmark had switched sides. The smiles looked normal at first, until you stared too long, too symmetrical, too wide. To the right, a doorway led into what looked like a living room, mirrored. On our island, Nathan's living room was to the left when you walked in. Here, it was flipped. Not just the layout. Everything. The furniture was the same kind. Not identical, but close. Same colors. Same wear patterns. A clock on the wall ticked just a half beat slower than it should have. The painting above the mantel showed a landscape we all recognized, except the river ran the wrong direction. "I want to go," Eli said behind me. His voice was barely there. None of us answered. We just kept looking. The room held us. Not physically, but in that way a nightmare does, where the air feels thick and stepping backward might wake something up. We weren't frozen. Just slow. Careful. Jonah was eyeing the bookshelf. Eli hovered near the fireplace. I stood by the wall, watching the second hand on the clock stutter with each tick. Sam moved toward the painting above the mantel, staring at it like he expected it to blink. No one talked. We were all too deep in it, scanning corners, studying the little wrong details, trying to figure out what this place was. Then Sam turned, brow furrowed. "Where's Nathan?" Every head snapped around. He wasn't there. He hadn't made a sound. No footsteps. No door creak. He'd vanished like air. We searched the house fast. Calling his name, moving from room to room in a rush that didn't feel loud, just clumsy. Like our panic didn't want to make noise but couldn't help it. There weren't many places he could have gone. The hallway led to a small kitchen, a stairwell, and a narrow back room with a locked door. Jonah tried the handle and found it wouldn't budge. No light under the crack. No sound from inside. Sam ran up the stairs two at a time, Eli and I closed behind. They creaked under us like normal stairs, nothing theatrical, nothing dramatic, but every groan from the wood felt too sharp. Like the house was responding. There were 2 bedrooms upstairs. One was empty, bare except for a bed frame and a window nailed shut. The second had a dresser, a mirror with a cracked corner, and more photographs. A different version of Nathan's family. This time, the faces were missing from some of the frames. Blurred out or too dark to see. But no Nathan. When we reached the bottom, Jonah wasn't there. We found him just outside, a few steps off the porch, arms crossed. "I checked around the house too," he said, not looking at us. "He's not here." We stood there, all 4 of us, facing the house like it might give something back. The open door gaped in front of us, cold air leaking out like it didn't belong to this place. Sam looked at me. "Do we go back in?" No one replied. Then, footsteps. From inside. Slow. Measured. Getting closer. The porch creaked. Nathan stepped into the doorway. Just stood there, like he'd never left. His face was blank. His shirt was damp. None of us spoke. No one moved. He stepped forward slowly, one hand brushing the frame like it grounded him. He looked rested. Calm. His clothes were the same, but the fit seemed off, like they belonged to a version of him just slightly smaller, or built differently. He blinked. Squinted at us. Then frowned, puzzled. "What?" he said. "Why are you all staring at me?" Eli was the first to speak. "Where the hell did you go?" Nathan tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "I was upstairs." "We checked upstairs," I said. "Every room." Nathan looked at each of us, one by one. His face was blank at first, but then something shifted, a flicker of a smile that came and went too fast. Not warm. Just performed. "I saw you," he said. "Through the railing. You were in the hall. You just walked off." That didn't make sense. We'd torn through every room. He wasn't there. No one had seen him. And there was no way he could have missed the noise we made. I was watching his hands. Nathan always rubbed his thumb against his knuckle when he was nervous, a little tick, unconscious. This Nathan's hands were still. Relaxed. At his sides. He stepped down from the porch. None of us moved. "Are we going?" he asked. Same voice. Same face. But the rhythm was off by a beat. Too calm. Too smooth. No one answered. We just stared. Waiting for something to twitch wrong. I opened my mouth to say something, but I couldn't make the words form. Not the right ones, anyway. We just started moving, brisk, determined, not quite running but no longer willing to stop. The sky was dimming fast, the woods deepening in color, and everything around us seemed to press in with a quiet that felt more like watching than stillness. Jonah walked up front. Sam stayed beside me. Eli and Nathan trailed behind us, a little slower, not too far back at first. We were almost to the beach when it hit us. A voice cracked open behind us, rasping, high-pitched, like a throat trying to speak for the first time and tearing itself apart in the process. There was the shape of a word, but the sound didn't know how to hold it. We froze. None of us looked back. "Run," Jonah said firmly. That was it. So we ran. Branches whipped our arms. Roots caught our feet. The path bent the wrong way more than once, and every tree looked like one we'd already passed. But we kept moving, pushing forward through the tightening forest until the trees finally broke open again and we saw it, the dock, warped and crooked, half sunken at the far end. A boat was tied to it. Not the one we'd taken, but something older. Narrower. Still afloat. We stopped at the edge of the road right next to the boats and turned. I checked to make sure everyone was with us. Eli was not. I watched the clearing, expecting to see him jogging up behind, cursing or out of breath. But the bend in the path stayed empty. We waited. A few more seconds passed. Then we heard it. A scream, ragged and sharp, echoing through the trees like it didn't belong to a voice but something breaking. Not words. Just pain. Jonah moved first. He stepped away from the boats, 1 foot toward the woods. And that's when she appeared. She walked slowly out from the bend of the clearing, circling into view. Cradled in her arms was Eli. He was still screaming. His body writhed, legs kicking, hands clawing at her shoulders. She didn't struggle. She didn't even seem to notice. Her arms were wrapped tightly around him, pulling him against her chest like a mother calming a child in the middle of a tantrum. Her face was fixed on us. Not Eli. Not the forest. Just us. Her eyes never left ours, like she wanted us to see everything. And we did. That same downward smile carved her mouth into a deep, strained curve. It looked like the expression had been sculpted into her face with wire, pulled tight and wrong. But her eyes told a different story, soft, glassy, full of warmth, like she was watching something beautiful unfold. As she held Eli tighter, her lips quivered slightly, as if the shape was difficult to maintain. Her cheeks twitched, like they couldn't decide whether to frown or laugh. She was trying to be gentle. She wanted us to know that. Eli was screaming, but it wasn't just fear. It was pain. Real pain. The kind that stops sounding human. His arms pushed against her shoulders, clawing, slapping, nothing that made a difference. His legs kicked out violently, his whole body thrashing like an animal in a snare. The heels of his boots barely scraped against the dirt as he was being held up. And still, she looked at us. Like we were the ones she was holding. Sam made a sound, half a sob, half a curse, and stepped forward. Jonah grabbed his arm. "We can't," he whispered, his voice cracking. "We can't." But we all took a step anyway. I did. I felt my foot move before I meant it to, like something in me couldn't stand still and watch. Then Eli screamed again, louder this time, high and desperate, raw at the edges. The kind of sound that burns your throat even when you're not the one making it. He kept kicking. Kept trying. She didn't flinch. Didn't tighten her grip suddenly. It wasn't violence. It was pressure. Steady. Controlled. Like she was soothing him into silence, one bone at a time. His screams of agony unraveled into a choking, broken gasp, like even his voice was giving out. Then we heard it. A single crack. Subtle. Quiet. Like a thick branch snapping underfoot. Eli jerked once in her arms. Then stopped moving. His head lolled against her shoulder. His arms dangled at his sides, empty of fight. She didn't stop smiling. She held him there, still watching us, her eyes locked onto ours like she wanted to see what we'd do next. Her fingers brushed his back in slow, meaningless circles, like she was soothing him to sleep. Jonah stepped backward first. Then Sam. I followed. I didn't even think, I just moved. The boat scraped against the rock as we pulled it into the water. Nathan hadn't spoken. I looked at him once, just once, and wished I hadn't. He wasn't crying. Wasn't breathing hard. He was standing completely still, watching her. And there was something small and soft at the corner of his mouth. An attempted smile. Just enough to be seen. Just enough to be wrong. We climbed into the boat. Pushed off. No one looked back except me. She was still standing at the edge of the trees, Eli's body limp against her chest. One arm wrapped around him like he was hers. And the other lifted slowly. She waved. We didn't speak on the water. None of us touched the oars at first. The tide pulled us gently, like the sea itself was too tired to fight. The sun had almost slipped beneath the horizon, casting everything in that strange, copper light that makes the world feel unreal, like you're seeing it through memory instead of your own eyes. Jonah finally took one oar, Sam the other. I sat in the middle, arms locked around my knees, staring at the ripple patterns trailing behind us. I don't remember when we lost sight of the mirrored island. I just remember the moment the real one came into view. The same island we left. Same houses. Same hills. Same docks. But we didn't come back whole. One of us was dead. And one of us came back wrong. There was a crowd at the shoreline. People from the village. Parents. A few older brothers. A grandmother with her arms folded tight. They weren't shouting or pacing or scanning the horizon. They just stood there, like they'd been waiting. The boat scraped against the sand. Hands reached out, my father, Sam's mother, Jonah's uncle. They helped us out without a word, their eyes flicking from face to face, counting. When they didn't find Eli, no one said it out loud. They just knew. His mother began to cry, quiet at first, then sharp and shuddering. His father stood behind her, unmoving, staring past us at the horizon like he was still hoping to see his son come into view. One of the older villagers, maybe the priest, maybe just someone who'd done this before, put a hand on her back and gently led her away. She didn't resist. She just let herself be led, walking like someone made of paper. Someone reached for Nathan and pulled him ashore, calm and deliberate. His mother rushed forward next, throwing her arms around him, clutching him so hard it looked painful. She was crying too, but it was different. Her hands twisted in the back of his shirt, but her face stayed tense, like she was trying to convince herself this was really him. Like she already knew she'd have to let go again. Nathan didn't hug her at first. He stood stiff for a second. Then slowly, he wrapped his arms around her. When she pulled back to look at him, something shifted in her face. Her hands stayed on his shoulders, but her fingers had gone stiff. Her eyes scanned him like she didn't recognize what she was holding. Nathan smiled. "You're holding me like I died." His voice was almost playful. Almost. He let out a small laugh, quiet, thin, like he wasn't sure if the joke had landed. It was too practiced. It started too fast and ended too late, hanging in the air like it didn't know when to stop. His smile stayed in place, but it didn't settle right. The corners of his mouth began to pull down instead of up. At first it looked like a twitch. Then it kept going, bending further, stretching the muscles in his face into that same strained expression we'd seen on her. A smile that was trying to mimic joy, but failing at the geometry of it. His eyes didn't match it. They looked heavy, glassy, and full of something that didn't belong in a smile, regret, maybe. Or grief. He wasn't afraid. Just resigned. Like something inside him understood what came next and didn't try to fight it. His mother let go of his arms. She took a step back, one hand covering her mouth. Behind her, the others had already started to move. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't argue. It was as if the whole village had already made peace with what needed to happen. A few men stepped forward. Jonah's uncle. Sam's father. A neighbor I didn't know by name. Nathan didn't resist. He didn't ask why. He just stood there, shoulders low, his eyes still on his mother. One hand reached for his sleeve. Another for his collar. They escorted him to the sea like they'd done it before. No ceremony. No shouting. Just the sound of the tide and the low murmur of footsteps on wet sand. They held him under until the waves stopped moving around them. And then they let him go. I still wonder if the real Nathan died in that house. Or if we left him there, alive, watching us walk away. Sometimes I think what came back with us wasn't pretending. I think it believed it was him. We begged our parents to send someone back. A boat. A search party. Anything. But they just looked through us, like we hadn't spoken. Like we hadn't seen what we saw. By the next day, no one even said his name.